All right, still sick, but still managed to show up even though it's pretty late. One thing that really came up right at the end of this work session was kind of a lesson that my teacher taught me. Probably one of my favorite teachers back in elementary school. And as it kind of resurfaced and I kind of looked at it again, I got some more like insight from my perspective now. Um, so I thought that'd be worth sharing right off the bat. So the thing that she taught us was so fantastic because it has like this quality of being so absurd on its face, which means it's very likely to stick in your mind, but with this really deep like quality and truth baked in. So whenever we encountered different things, either different topics that are brought up or whatever, a new book or just any sort of subject that we may not have any like we don't know how to feel about it. It's foreign to us, right? The approach that she had us take was to say, "Ooh, ah, interesting," as like a whole group, right? Which it's so silly, like "Ooh, ah, interesting." It just sounds like such a like it's I guess maybe facetious is the word. It's so like hyperbolic. I'm still not landing on the right word for it, but it's you get the idea. Um, but I just realized that like, holy shit, I think it's far more ingrained in me than I realized, and I can probably even take it a little bit further. And it's just approaching things that you encounter in life with like an intentional level of interest. It gets you to get past any of those early hurdles, particularly with new things or things that might seem on its face like oof, right? And you always end up with useful takeaways because if you go in with that mindset, you end up with something, even if it's like I'm not doing that again, right? And even if you relearning a lesson's just a part of life. So I really like that approach. And it's kind of funny the time that it popped up because when it popped into my head, it's when I encountered just a really kind of frustrating bug. Right after a pretty good work session, getting a lot of things lined up and working, I'm like, oh, everything's working great now. And then I run it, and then everything's great except if I lose tracking on one of the controllers, then there's like this giant plane that gets rendered out into infinity. Like what? Why? It's very strange. I don't know what is happening there. But instead of me like dwelling on that or like immediately trying to attack it or getting really kind of emotionally bent out of shape about it, that saying of being ooh ah interesting, it just completely reframed it. And then I knew that like okay, this is an interesting thing. I'm at the end of my work session. I'm not gonna be able to solve it right now, but uh, we will get to it tomorrow. And instead of dreading it until then, framing it as something that's interesting that we want to pick apart, figure out, right? Is going to be a lot better than returning to something like, oh God, that, right? So, just an amazing lesson that I think is really worth sharing. And yeah, I just notice more and more that it's already played a huge role in my life, and it's probably gonna continue to play an even larger one. So yeah, yeah, there are good teachers out there, and they do teach you some good things. Yeah. Yeah. Then to get into the more specifics of what I was doing today. Yeah, we ended up once again getting like everything more or less working, so that's really really good. Kind of tore apart all the networking, like the cubic flow wasn't even plugged in, I think, for at least a week or so, and now that's all plugged back in. There's an odd thing here and there, but the odd thing here and there is it's it's a lot better than it was, because it was already flawed kind of in that way, that it is now before all these changes, but now the flaw is represented like in the code when you're playing it. I'm not doing any sort of like trickery to try to make it look like, oh, this is more polished than it is, or this is more thought through, or there's more here, right? Because those things can end up being they end up getting so tangled so quickly because there's these little hacky solutions, right? And if you do have a hacky solution and you can't do anything to get away with not doing it, at least give it its own sort of space, and just let it be its hacky self, and you'll get to it, right? Yeah. So, yeah, did lots of different things with mainly networking stuff. And the changes that I made the day before played a huge role in making this part today go a lot smoother. I believe I would have ended up with this taking at least 2 more work sessions, at the very least. But we got through it, and with time to spare. And per usual, when you're in this refactor mode, you're like you're going around cleaning, right? You end up reaching the end and being like, wait, I'm done. Did I miss something? Because the finish line isn't as like obvious, because you're always just hopping around, smash that bug, smash this thing, pull that out, right? That you must feel like it just kind of dropped out beneath you. It doesn't feel like a finish line thing, or I don't know how to describe it past that. But yeah, quite the experience. So you almost have to take a moment to be like, okay, we did it. Yay, let's go celebrate by reusing the functionality, or even really treasuring the new pieces that now are either exist or are going to exist soon. So you can see me doing that here. Even though I'm already aware I can do all these things and they don't really need to be tested at all, I'm just going to play with it, right? Spend a little bit of time, just get a little bit of validation out of it. Luckily, this is the last of the big refactors, which thank God, because they're not too interesting in terms of content. I can't really talk about new features, or the storylines aren't as dramatic, but they are an incredibly useful thing to do and a skill to have. I think it's still worth sharing, even if the videos tend to be a bit more dull. Yeah. At the very least, it does help me get through it a lot quicker. Refactoring stuff can be a lot, and so having it blocked out where I'm making these videos and I'm having to talk through things, I'm doing it more publicly, so I can't just get in a really bad mental state. I have to usually check myself, take a step back, with these 25-minute work increments and then 5-minute breaks. It can really help me pace myself as well. It's so easy to get frazzled when everything is like kind of blown out and there's 20 things that need to be addressed. So this bit of structure, it's everything when it comes to making it through smoothly. But yeah, like I said, kind of at the end of the last session, I went from this whole refactor. I went from dreading doing new doing new networking stuff, and now I've kind of ended on a note of being pretty excited. So we actually get to do that next session.